Sorry. Yeah, a lot of people. You could hear for a few words and then it went mute. That's really interesting. All right, hold on. We have audio. Okay. Now we're good. All right. I had like a noise suppression filter on. I don't understand why that would have done whatever the heck it did. But thank you for shouting that I was just talking into the quiet void. Cool. Thanks. As I was saying, this is my first time messing around with Streamlabs in a very long time. This is my first time on this machine, this setup with Streamlabs. So obviously we've got some kinks to work out. I worked on setting up this stream for a long time. And yeah, it looks like it's working. I see the chat is like coming up and then like immediately hiding. Let me like see if I can switch that on the chat box there. I don't know. We'll figure it out. And then I've got, let's try this transition to, yeah, look at that. All right, cool. So got things kind of set up and working. I've been working on this for a few days now to try to spice up the stream instead of just sharing, sharing my normal like OBS setup. Tried to do a few things. So yeah, we can talk cybersecurity news. I was trying to do multi-stream and set up some stuff on, because I've been going live on TikTok a bunch. And I was trying to go live mobile, and the button said apply for live streaming on TikTok. I was like, I don't need to apply for live streaming on TikTok. I go live on TikTok every day. Turns out going live from Streamlabs from your computer is a completely different freaking thing. So yes, I did need to apply. So I can't multi-stream like that right now, but I think I should be live on Twitch and YouTube. And thanks for telling me you couldn't hear me. So no real agenda today. This was more kick the tires, see what's going on, see what kind of questions come in. I've been getting tons and tons and tons of questions when I go live about like certifications and stuff like that. It's kind of insane. That's like all anyone ever wants to talk about. There's a blog post I did want to share and talk about, and kind of get my thoughts together on that my buddy Dan Miesler posted. Let me pull it up. Dan Miesler blog. Let's get this onto the right screen. And let's switch over to this. Cool. All right. So Dan is putting out like a ton of content. But the blog that caught my eye that he put out just a few days ago was called I'm Worried It Might Get Really Bad. So if you guys don't know Dan, he is one of the most forward thinkers, in my opinion, on just anything. A, cybersecurity. B, like AI as it intersects with cybersecurity. It's kind of like a major thing for Dan. And so when he says he's worried, I tend to listen. So right off the bat, he says he doesn't think that like the thing that everyone's worried about, and I get this question all the time. It's like, hey, should I even bother getting into cybersecurity? Is AI going to take everyone's job? My general answer is no. I really like this phrase that I've been saying called humans to the power of AI, right? Not AI replacing humans. So I've been kind of latching onto that phrase. Dan's got another view right now, and he thinks that it might come sooner than we all think. He's saying spontaneous recession. I don't like those two words together. So as he's typing it out, so I read this and I started to think a little bit about it. So we're gonna like kind of go through it together, and I want to tell you guys my thoughts on this whole thing, right? So I agree with him here that we know a ton of very talented people who have lost their jobs and are having a hard time getting new jobs with massive qualifications, right? So people making good money in tech or tech adjacent for over a decade, and they can't find work. They can barely get interviews. I know for a fact some people that hang out in my live stream that I know are 20 plus year veterans in cybersecurity, and they can't even get a freaking interview. So completely agree with Dan here. He said a ton, multiple dozen that I either know or 1 degree separated from. Completely agree. I keep bouncing off of people that have been let go and are having a hard time getting in. Tons of business leaders are explicitly telling us they're looking to replace human workers with AI. Google straight up said it. Amazon has said it. Salesforce CEO has said it. Everyone, right? Citing AI-driven productivity gains. Salesforce said, we won't hire any new software engineers in 2025. Yeah, Brandon, I kind of tend to agree, right? Not too worried because there are devs using AI, but they can't even, figure out their way out of a box. I agree. There's a bunch of angles here, but this blog post from Dan has spurred some new thought from me. What up, Roman? Roman, first time in a new live setup. You always help me out on TikTok, so give me a shout with how things are working here. Oh, look, the little chat box is working now. I think it was set to the chats to pop up and then disappear after a minute. So there's a bunch of early chats that aren't showing up. But all right, we'll figure things out as we go. So Dan put a thought out a while ago that's been rattling around in my head for a very long time, which is the ideal number of employees for a company is 0. I'm just going to pause and let that kind of sit and hear it out. The ideal number of employees for a company is 0. It's hard to disagree with him, right? It's if a company could make billions of dollars and not have, hundreds of thousands of employees, tens of thousands of employees, they would make that trade 100 times out of 100, right? So the ideal number of employees for a company is 0, or at least logarithmically trending towards 0, right? So there's this constant tension, and AI is kind of this new ideal number of customers is infinite. Good call. And so AI is kind of this new thing that is got this idea in the back of people's heads of oh, maybe I could do a whole lot of the same amount of stuff with a whole lot less people. So Dan is kind of poising hey, we're seeing the layoffs. Microsoft laid off 15,000 2025. I saw 9,000. If he's saying 15, maybe that's a couple different rounds. Intel, Tesla, Cisco. I mean, these are giants. So I have a few thoughts here, right? One is, and a lot of people don't want to kind of confront this, a lot of these massive companies have a ton of bloat sitting around, right? I've worked at massive companies. I've interacted with entire teams of people that I personally questioned why the team existed, why that function was necessary, right? And obviously I'm not a fan of layoffs or anything like that. I don't want anyone to lose their job, but at these giant megacorps, there are definitely teams of people that, I don't know, are kind of not necessarily adding to the value of the company, right? Maybe I've worked places where 13 people managed one spreadsheet. That was their entire job. The reason they exist was this spreadsheet, keeping it up to date. And I personally was this whole thing could go away. So extrapolate that over a ton of different companies with hundreds of thousands of employees. Layoffs are going to happen, right? The higher ups are going to come in and say, hey, we need to save money. And the middle management is going to go, well, this whole thing is kind of a nice to have. Why don't we get rid of it, right? So now we have this new shiny thing called AI that we can blame those layoffs on, because PR is a huge part of layoffs, right? This is why layoffs come in waves, because the companies can point and say, hey, look at all those other companies laying off thousands of people. We're just having the same issues as they are. It's not us. We didn't overhire. We didn't make a mistake. We didn't take thousands of people and drag them along for a few years and they weren't actually adding a ton of value and we're just like a big slow company so we didn't do anything about it. No. That couldn't possibly be it. It must be macroeconomics, or it must be tariffs, or it must be AI, or whatever it is. The PR of layoffs is super important, right? Very true. Sadly, they end up laying off the wrong people and realize that, yeah, that also happens, right? So there's a ton of bloat, and then like good people get caught up in it. Maybe they're not like the most vocal employees, but they're actually adding a lot of value. They're gone. And I mean, Amazon has literally seen this happen over and over again because they hire, mostly in Seattle. And they just did this big, like, return to office push where they're like, oh, everyone back in the office or you lose your job. Well, guess what? They fired a lot of talented people that they then tried to claw back. And it's like, yeah, good luck. They've also like gone through the talent pool of Seattle a couple times over, right? So absolutely true. So I think we're seeing a lot of layoffs. I think there's a lot of different reasons for this, but the leadership is definitely going to say and point at AI because of this, right? 549 companies laid off more than 150,000 employees in 2024. We've already seen 69,000 layoffs in 2025 as of the end of July. The tech unemployment rate sits at 3.4, but that doesn't capture the full picture of experienced professionals unable to find work. AI keeps improving, and companies are stitching together the pieces to make it replace human workers. This is kind of Dan's like major point here. I think there's a few buckets that I put companies under that like sit in this world. I think one is companies that are actually like experimenting, kicking the tires with AI, not like replacing humans right away, but trying to gain efficiencies. And then once they are starting to sniff those efficiencies being realized, they go, well, we don't need 15% of this team because of whatever, right? And so unfortunately, you see teams like putting themselves out of work by working on some of these projects. Then another bucket is, I've worked in industries where if one of the big companies in this industry did something, the others had to do the same thing. Okay? Either the board of directors demanded it, their shareholders demanded it, whatever it was, the question would be, hey, so-and-so did it. Why aren't you doing it? Right? And they would have to answer that question. And so I think that is like another thing that we're going to see people fall into. Say I'm JP Morgan and I do a ton of like really good experimentation and gain efficiencies, and I put out some big press release that like AI is replacing, the bottom 5% of performers in fraud detection. I don't know, just making shit up, right? Then you're going to start to see questions in leadership over at Wells or B of A or whatever it is, right? And the leadership is going to say, hey, JP Morgan just put out this big press release that like they're going to be able to do all this stuff. And what are we? What's our story, right? What's our story here? And they're going to hustle, and they're not going to do the same like cool experimentation, like Dan is saying, of like stitching together the pieces, making improvements. They're not going to do that. They're just going to jump and be like, yeah, no, us too. Look, like we struck this deal with OpenAI. They're in here and we're doing layoffs. Like, look at our cost savings, right? And they're going to do what Roman is saying, and they're going to lay off the talented people, right? So I think there's a few buckets here. Hundreds of thousands of companies, billions of dollars are being spent replacing human workers. Some don't think that's possible, but they think we need to invent some super smart model that's better than anything we've ever seen. We don't need that. We just need the scaffolding and piping that connects the dots. Sorry, I have someone testing my my streams on the other side, and they couldn't find me on Twitch. I can't change my Twitch name. Isn't that funny? I named myself on Twitch Reshi Coat long time ago, and I can't change it. But but it's not worth starting over because it's like an affiliate account with history and all this kind of stuff. So, all right. So basically he's saying, hey, we don't need some super new model that Sam Altman says is like a PhD level intelligence. We just need the scaffolding and piping that connects the dots and bring the right context together. And I agree with this. So we kind of saw this with ChatGPT 5, right? Where Sam says, oh, it's this new super model, it's whatever. And everyone got their hands on it and goes, this kind of sucks, right? I was one of those people. I was like, man, for all the hype and the wait, like, this doesn't feel like a better experience. I'm sure scientifically it's a better model, right? They threw a gazillion dollars at it and training it, and, you know, they're keeping NVIDIA afloat and all this kind of stuff. But it doesn't feel as good to all of us, right? And so I think the future is, whoops. Just locked my computer trying to silence notifications so that you guys don't hear all that. So I think the future is, instead of the new super model, that's funny. That's not what I meant. But like, instead of the new like Uber, you know, GPT-6 trained on the world, you know, in seas of data centers, I think we're going to see a few things. I think we're going to see like niche models come out, right? So it's like GPT-6 dash academic, GPT-6 dash finance, GPT-6 dash cybersecurity. I could see that, right? I could see like, hey, no, put all the effort you put into making this general model that's basically like trained on the entire internet, put all that same level of effort and make one that's really, really good at a specific thing, right? Because that's what we're all using it for anyway. We're trying to take a general model and then use it for a specific thing. I think the general models are still going to exist. People are using it instead of search engines nowadays. But and then the other thing besides like specific models, I think, is what Dan's getting at, is the actual like ecosystem around it. We're still in the infancy of all of this, right? But if you could, and this is like where all the AI startups are kind of making their bacon, right? Is this is the moat, right? So it's like if I'm starting an AI like cybersecurity company that's really good at like finding vulnerabilities in code, or like Beto, you said AI pen testers, like there, I went to Black Hat, you know, a couple weeks ago, and the whole startup corner, I'd say about 40% of the companies in startup corner were either AI SOCs or AI pen testing companies. Okay, so there is no hope that it doesn't affect pen testers that much. It's happening, right? Whether or not it's actually going to replace skilled pen testers is yet to be seen. I don't see that. I think currently it's going to replace non-AI vuln scanners, right? I haven't seen any of the AI pen testing tools like find business logic flaws or something that, you know, requires a chain of events or anything like that. They've just been like very good vuln scanners, right? With a lot less false positives, and they can, you know, get context and exploitability and all this kind of stuff. So, but what those companies are, say I'm building an AI vuln scanner, really what I'm doing, I'm attaching to the big main models, right? On the back end, it's, you know, probably some conglomeration of Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, whatever. But the like, my intellectual property as a company, my moat is the scaffolding and piping. Can I get the right dots connected with the right context to the right model to get the right output, right? So that code is currently the intellectual property of all of this kind of stuff, right? So I completely agree here that like we don't need some super like Uber trained on everything model to come out to like start replacing human workers, because that's not what's happening, right? We're seeing people start to, you know, connect the dots. Dan saying, I already have a ton of the precursors of this working. Everyone is working on this right now, right? Everyone who's like in the AI gold rush is working on exactly what Dan's talking about, the scaffolding, the connect the dots. Everyone was throwing around the word agent. This is an agent, okay? How do I like build the scaffolding of an agent around some of the big models? I'm not going to go train my own model. 2 years ago, that's what everyone thought. Everyone thought, oh, security companies are going to train their own specific models on cybersecurity. I don't think so. I think those kind of niche models are going to come out. It's not going to be like a security company doing it. I think the people that are currently amassing data centers are going to put out more specific models. So like Dan said, he's got the precursors of this working. I've seen what Dan has. It's true. He's thinking, 9 steps ahead of a lot of us on what he needs to do to like kind of create context and input around his life to get like a good digital assistant going. And he's been just hammering on this for a while. And he's saying, now imagine billions of dollars and tens of thousands of people working on it. It's absolutely happening right now, right? Like I said, that whole startup corner all had a gazillion VC dollars. And that's what they're doing. So Salesforce says AI bots now do 50% of the company's work. Who believes that? After agents, AI ecosystem. I like that. Who believes that? Salesforce says AI bots now do 50% of the company's work. I don't. I think that's like a way over exaggeration. I'm going to open that article and see what they say. They're pushing what they call a digital workforce, where AI agents handle customer service, sales, and even coding tasks. Microsoft reports that 30% of coding work is already done by AI. These aren't future promises. This is happening right now. All right. So a few things. Yeah. We've all seen the AI customer service agent, right? Got it. Cool. Sales, I actually just saw a paper put out by MIT that did a study about like AI enabled sales teams and how they were actually underperforming people that weren't trying to lean on AI. I think sales is all about relationships and relationship building. And I think what people are currently conflating into AI driven sales is mostly like outbound and automation and all that kind of crap, just like with context and like writing sales emails better and all this kind of stuff. I don't think so. Let's see, Brandon. Microsoft 30% of code said to be only internal code, nothing in prod, although that would make sense. The whole SharePoint phone, yeah, maybe they should let AI code in prod. And even coding tests. So we know customer support, got it, but there's still like an escalation path, right? We've had we've had like automated customer service for a long time. Like chatbots are just the next iteration of that. Yeah, they're probably a little bit better, but I don't know about measurably how much better. Sales, I just disagree. I think a lot of people are going to try to do AI sales and they're going to regret it, and it's going to come rolling back. And then coding's the one thing I'm like, yeah, I actually don't disagree that some large percentage of code at these big companies is generated by AI. They're just generating more code. So like, yeah, the percentage looks interesting, but it's like AI coding tools just make developers way faster. Some of the best developers I know that are kicking the can with Claude Code are incredibly happy because they're like, oh, I'm never going back. This sped me up, orders of magnitude. So I agree. I think this is just more code, right? The prize they're chasing is worth the cost because it means saving millions upon millions in hiring costs, payroll, health insurance, all manner of employee-related complications in every business. Read, what Dan said a few weeks ago. Every company wants 0 employees, right? Getting rid of the human workforce is a multi-trillion-dollar idea and opportunity for the companies to get that part of the pie, and they're spending on the R&D accordingly. The current non-AI based companies and services are far from ideal or optimized. I agree. I'm seeing some companies kind of ignore this whole thing. They're thinking it's a fad, or they're like, yeah, we're using AI or whatever, right? I'm talking to some founders who run some smaller companies, smaller, right? Medium, whatever, a couple hundred employees. And they're talking to their team, and the founders are like, on it. They're like reading all the AI stuff out there. They're thinking about it, but then they go and like they talk to their, team. Say someone on the team's job is to like do documentation, and they're like, hey, show me how you're using AI in your job doing documentation, and the person really isn't. And the founder is like, hey, I showed you this months ago. This would make you way faster. and they're not. They're just like not doing it, right? And so I think you're going to see, that's where you're going to see some layoffs from some of these companies who the founder is super AI forward, but maybe the teams aren't really, optimized around it. And I'm not even talking anything crazy here, like AI pen testers or any of these like super AI agents. I'm just talking like, hey, are you like using note takers and, writing assistants and all this kind of stuff to just kind of like notch up your output a little bit in quality and quantity? Debatable on both those things, right? Depending on what model you're using for what. But I think if you're just ignoring it, you're kind of missing huge optimizations, right? So he's saying, okay, non-AI based companies, far from optimized. Got it. I've seen it. He talked about, we'll open that in a new tab. He's worried about a specific kind of company and product disruption from AI. Current companies are inefficient versions of what they could be, and current products are bad versions of what they could be. Okay, we'll go read that other piece in a sec. This is what scares me. I think we're about to see millions of jobs lost, not because the companies and products that survive will replace many workers with AI. What I'm really worried about is those companies and services products disappearing altogether because they've been replaced by more efficient companies and products to do the same thing but better with fewer people. It's hard to disagree with Dan here. It's hard to disagree with this part. There will still be people building those other products and services and companies, but it'll be far fewer because they don't have near the overhead. What about people in coding boot camps and juniors in college or in junior colleges? This is Dan kind of being sad, right? So he said, I feel completely sad and hopeless when I think about everyone in junior colleges and coding boot camps, those taking online tech courses, those trying to claw their way into tech and cybersecurity any way they can. Why do I feel so bad? Because ahead of them in line are people with 10, 15, 20 years of experience with bachelor's degrees, master's degrees in the field, and they're being laid off. They're searching for jobs, and they can't find any work. So answer me this. How the hell is a new college grad supposed to find a job and experienced professionals can't? And worse than new college grads, what about junior college students? What about people seeking mentorship? What about those trying unconventional, scrappy ways to break in? If people who did everything right, got the degree, gained the experience, are being laid off, what hope does anyone have without these credentials and advantages? This is why I wanted to talk about this, because every time I go live, I mean, Roman, you can attest, like, this is a question I get virtually always, right? Yeah, I know you're one of them. I'm not as pessimistic as Dan here, right? I think it's always been kind of hard, right, to like figure out how to claw your way in. I think the people that we know that are super experienced, that are having a hard time getting jobs, might just be facing like just the weird. I feel like a lot of people are just holding their breath right now. Everything's just feeling a little weird in the job market, and it's just rough. I'd also say that just like straight up applying to jobs and hoping to get interviews is just not working for anybody, right? The people that I know that are like moving around and getting new jobs and doing whatever, right? I don't know. I feel like I know a lot of people on the opposite side, right? That are having no problem getting jobs, not getting laid off, pointing and choosing a new gig because they want to go work at a new company. I think the difference between these two groups of people, I'm not putting blame on the people that are having a hard time finding a job, but I'm just like trying to spot the differences. And I think a lot of it is literally just the strength and reputation of your personal network, right? It's how many people do you know that you keep in touch with that know you, that know your quality of output, that know your skill set? And how can you prove that? How can you stand in front of a pile of proof that you know what you're talking about, right? That isn't a certification, isn't like a line on your resume. Because you got to think, if people are somewhat holding their breath, somewhat not like hiring in mass right now, maybe they're doing layoffs, maybe they're hearing mumblings of layoffs, so they're not like hiring willy-nilly. If they're going to bring someone on, they're going to bring someone on that is low risk. They know what they're getting into. A lot of hiring is really about, does this person suck? A lot of hiring is, am I bringing someone on that is going to gel, mesh with the team, get some stuff done, and not like caused a lot of other issues, right? I've worked with a lot of people. I've worked on a lot of different teams, and some teams, you all know what I'm talking about, right? Have energy vampires or kind of cancerous team members, and all that. Sorry, getting a phone call. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I'm not as like pessimistic as Dan here. I think so he said people that did everything right, and what he focuses on is the stuff on paper. Like, I did everything right. I went to college. I got some experience, and they're being laid off. I think there's like a big part that he's missing here. And it's all about like the network and all that. It's who you know. Are you getting out there? Are you meeting people? Are you building trust? Trust is built over coffee. Trust is built over beer. Trust isn't built based on the beefiness of your resume, if that makes sense. Roman says, got to find a CVE to stand out. I know plenty of people with CVEs who would not make good employees anywhere. It depends on what kind of role you're looking for. It's interesting. It takes years to build a very strong network in college. It can be difficult to do in realization. Yeah. Understood. It does. It takes a while, but it happens in person too, right? So like, I just recommend, no matter where you are in your journey. I met a lot of college students out at DEF CON and Black Hat this year, and they all like kind of had a mentor that dragged them out there, or, were part of an organization. I know there's a TikTok live streamer that's still in college that was out at DEF CON because they were volunteering at one of the, initiatives, one of the kind of smaller groups that is helping people get into the industry. So that volunteer effort, those relationships, that's going to pay off wildly, right? They have a job. They're doing well. So that's the kind of stuff. Making content too. I'm slacking, but I hear huge things, taking advantage. Yeah, I haven't stopped talking on the internet out of the womb, right? So I've been, quote unquote, making content the entire time, forever, right? I had a blog before social media existed, was, heavy on social media for a while. And I think that kind of stuff really, really, really helps. It's not about setting you apart. It's about building trust, right? Relationships, having the trust that you got to go into. So that's my slight optimistic take on like what Dan's getting out here. But there's definitely a grain of truth in what he's talking about, right? It's hard out there right now. There is this like magic pill that a lot of people think, that a lot of companies think that they can take this magic pill called AI and hire a whole lot less people. I think they're wrong. I don't think they're correct, but they think so, and they think it's going to save their ass, right? So we're going to see layoffs from it. But as we said kind of earlier in the chat, I think it's going to be an overreaction, an overcorrection. Some of that might be obvious because they're going to like start trying to claw people back. But I think a lot of it will be less obvious because I think all these big companies have layoffs that they could do in any given year anyway, because they're all hiring, tens of thousands of people. And there's some fat that they can cut, right? Why are we still telling people to pursue credentials and take years to earn? Those same credentials aren't protecting anyone from layoffs. I'm not. Come in my live streams. Ask me if I'm telling people to go pursue credentials. I'm not. I agree. Like, cert does not equal job. Degree sometimes does equal job, right? Depends where you're at. Degree sometimes does equal job. And I think college is just good for everybody. Go grow up, let your frontal cortex form, do college. But I agree with this. Who are companies keeping? What attributes do they have? That's what we should be asking. All right. What do you think, chat? That's a really good question. The people that they're keeping, even through all of this, what about all this? Having a vast social network shouldn't be a qualifying factor getting a job. By definition, that excludes more qualified candidates. I don't disagree with you. It's just the reality that I've seen in terms of what's actually happening. I don't disagree with you. But when you're the hiring manager and you got 900 applications on LinkedIn, within an hour of you posting a job, half of which are fake. You have a recruiter maybe that's like part-time helping you kind of sift through them. You don't want to like apply some sort of resume filter based on like BS credentials, because I don't want to like gate on some test, right? Because they don't mean anything, right? I know plenty of people that have gone and passed those tests and weren't worth a damn, right? Actually had a job. So what it comes down to is referrals, right? Can I talk to someone and be like, hey, I'm looking to hire a cloud security person. Does anyone know anyone who might be on the market? And a lot of times those people aren't like actively on the market. They're already happily employed, and I can go and poach them. That's just been my experience. And so how does that person get in my lap if it's not a pile of 900 resumes on LinkedIn? It's generally via us knowing a mutual person or me already knowing them, right? Don't disagree with you. Should not be a qualifying factor in getting a job. I'm just trying to help based on all this crap that Dan is saying, which is hard to disagree with, but I think there's like, one kind of bit missing, and it's the who you know. Can't avoid a live without a cert. Yeah, totally. But there's a good question. Who are companies keeping? What attributes do they have? I thought about the other bit when I read this post. I haven't thought about this bit yet. I think my answer is kind of I call these people load-bearing team members, right? Everyone's worked on a team where there's that one person that, like, if that server breaks, you got to call that person. Oh, something broke in XYZ system. Did you call Ghostbusters? Did you call the guy that knows how to fix that? Those are the people that are being kept. Those are the people that if they get rid of, they wind up trying to reach out to and try to hire again. I think that's definitely one. Yeah, the hero is a good way to put it. I strongly, when I talk to teams and advise teams when they're building out their security program, I tell them actively to avoid superhero culture, because it's a thing. It's a thing, especially in security. That like you could have a team of 13 and 2 of them are the ones that always get called when something's on fire. And at that point, it's like, what's going on? Are we not cross-training? Are we not, what's up? We cannot, you're going to either burn those people out and they're going to be miserable, or those people are going to leave. And then what happens? So usually what I try to identify those things. I try to talk to those heroes and say, hey, you have to let something drop from time to time so that the rest of the team knows what's going on. But that's one of my answers for who the companies are keeping. Let's see if Dan says anything else. I kind of forget. Most workers just check in, check out, don't put in that much effort. There's a frequent counter argument. I don't like disagree with this, but I also hate this like mentality of like, you must go above and beyond. It's like exceeds expectations should not be the goal. Expectations are expectations. And so like, there's like a work-life thing going on here in hustle culture that, obviously sucks and it's very toxic, but he's calling them like he sees them. And I don't, it's hard to disagree, right? That's like a reality, is like the people that work harder than they're expected to are going to kind of like be more valid. There's those heroes that also avoid cross-training to stay valuable. Yeah, I haven't seen that in a long time in my career, Roman, but you're right. I used to see that a lot when there were like specific tools or pieces of technology and software that like someone went and got trained on, and like, okay, they're the person that knows about, blah, 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 right? Because the company paid to go get them trained on it. I haven't seen that personally as much. I wouldn't stand for it, right? If I was a leader at an org and I told someone to help out, hey, share the load, tell such and such team member to, let them shadow you or whatever, and they said no, I'd be like, what do you mean no? No, yeah, absolutely. You must do this. But yeah, I haven't run into that in a while. I ran into that like way back in the day. I remember at my internship specifically, I was working at a very large international company, in semiconductors and logistics, and I was doing like data security intern for them or whatever it was. And yeah, there was a few people that was like, oh no, that's the only person that knows that thing. It's like, yeah, that's just weird. But yeah, I haven't seen it. I've mostly worked on smaller teams. Oh no, besides the bank. I've worked on a lot of smaller teams. It's just that it can't happen, right? Too small of a team. Actually, yeah, at the big banks, that definitely still exists, Roman. You're completely right. There are people, maybe not purposely hoarding information to remain relevant, but like just aren't socially wired to like teach people. What's up, Epic Journey? You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely, cybersecurity attracts a lot of people that like are on the spectrum socially, just by nature of the work. And yeah, I definitely ran into a bunch of people that maybe weren't the most socially adept to be like, yeah, let's bring some people along for the ride and teach them my area of expertise. It's definitely not a thing. All right, so most workers just check in, check out. They don't put in that much effort. There's a frequent counter argument to AI taking human jobs that goes something like this. Yeah, AI might be able to do the job at a basic level, but humans are dynamic and creative. We can use our innovation and brilliance to do things way better than AI. I'm guessing the 1-2 punch is coming that Dan disagrees with this. This is, of course, true for some workers, some of the time. But by definition, most workers are not exceptional. Most workers and most work days are just drudgery. Answering emails, writing up quarterly plans, reviewing metrics, building applications that do something with data. A very large number of people dread Monday, and that's not because they show up Monday morning and bring all their creativity and brilliance. It's because it's clocking in and clocking out at a job they'd rather not be doing. I mean, this sums it up right here, right? I'm not saying this is how it should be. I'm not saying that like we should be forcing people to do more and be creative and brilliant all the time. I certainly am not that myself. I certainly have phoned in a lot of Mondays at previous jobs and just answered the emails that came my way and didn't like seek out to change the world every Monday. But I mean, it's a good point. These are prime targets for AI replacement, and they are not on the fringe. This isn't the bottom 5% of the workforce. This is the bottom 60 to 80%. He's just guessing, right? This isn't actual science. In other words, my read is that replacement of jobs by AI isn't coming for the bottom few percent. It's coming for all but the top few percent. Not all at once. This will take years, but I think it's already started. Man. I saw it last year at an insurance org. Yeah, it's like keeping a secret in a sense. Yeah. I've seen it. I'm worried about people that don't have the money to be spending in the restaurants and shops. Cancel Mondays. Sharks, I'm standing before you asking for a day between Sunday and Monday. Thank you. Another thing I wonder about is I see how expensive everything is, and I know what the average salary working wage is. I can't help but wonder, how the hell are restaurants so full? How is it that people are still going to the movies, eating out, and buying stuff? I'm concerned the answer might be that many are putting everything on credit cards, and the data points in that direction. We Americans now have $1.2 trillion in total credit card debt, according to the Federal Reserve Bank. That's up 57% from the pandemic low of $770 billion. But what hits even harder is the average per household. Average per household in 2021 was like, let's call it $5,100 in credit card debt. And average per household in 2024 is almost 11,000, maybe 10,700. 10,668 in credit card debt with an average interest rate of 22.5%. That's over $2,300 per year in just interest payments per household. Well, cool. I got a lot of issues with how I was raised, but one thing that was beat into me from a young age was to never get a credit card and run a balance. And so I only have credit cards that get paid off every month. So I'm glad to not be in this bucket. What's even more concerning is that approximately 9% of credit card balances have transitioned into delinquency over the past year. People are maxing out their cards, struggling to make the minimum payments. Half of Americans are carrying credit card debt, and for many, it's becoming unsustainable. So yes, the restaurants are full and the shops are busy, but it's increasingly being funded by high interest debt that people can't actually afford, and the tariffs haven't even fully hit yet. All right, everybody, we're having a nice optimistic Wednesday here. Sorry, not sorry. This is a very good piece, right? Daniel's really thinking this stuff out. He's making some uncomfortable things. Same here, seeing the disaster with credit cards. Yep. The big one I've seen with DLP is people that don't know how to turn off computers are putting PII in Copilot and generating emails for them. Brandon, you are correct. You are correct. I've actually been helping advise some companies that are trying to solve that, right? Like, let your employees use AI, but don't let them put sensitive stuff in there is an interesting balance to strike. Klarna on DoorDash. I know, Roman, I saw that happen, and that seems like I was like, that's a really bad idea, right? We're doing layaway on delivery food. Something I'm personally trying to cut back on a whole lot. You know, I like pho. Do I like pho where it costs like $40 to get to my door versus like a $6 sandwich in my house? It's a thing. I DoorDash way too much. Then we have the macro situation. I make decent money, and every single day I'm like, how the fuck did I just pay $20 for a burger and a Diet Coke? I didn't even read this line, and I just said this. I just said this. I make decent money, and I'm like, why am I paying $30 to $40 to deliver, a meal? Like a burger and a Diet Coke. I mean, that's like exactly the head scratching that I've got going on, right? And it's just everything. On a given day, I might use a few different services, eat out a couple times, and suddenly I've spent $100 when that would have been $40 or $50 a few years ago. I completely agree. This 2.7% inflation nonsense that they publish, I don't understand. I mean, I know that's in the aggregate, but like, we all know that that's horse shit when it comes to like food and other daily life expenses, right? Because people don't realize you can go buy ingredients, make food at home cheaper. What you pay for DoorDash can be a few dinners at the grocery store. Yeah, Brandon, I agree. For me, it's just time. It's a bad excuse, but I'm running my own business, and it's like, all right, I got to turn it off and try to go do laundry tonight and do dinner. I've got like 2 hours with my family before, bedtime, and I got to like get ready for tomorrow, do bedtime, get back up, pack lunches, like all this kind of stuff. You're right. But boy, does my brain go, what'd be nice? A quesadilla. I have 4 kids. McDonald's could be $80. Exactly. I don't have 4. I have less than 4, and it's expensive. But boy, does my dumb little brain go, I could hit a button, and this is solved. More delicious food than I can make will appear. Yeah. So it's a thing. Putting me aside, I look around every day. I look around at everyone around me, and I'm like, how the hell is anyone affording this? Dan publishes like his finances publicly every year. He makes very good money. I think combined, he made the last year that he published it, I think he's publicly said he made about around $700, $750, from some consulting, his business, his newsletter, speaking engagements, stuff like this, right? He's very, very transparent, which I respect and is awesome. And he is sitting here going, why the hell is the burger costing $20, right? And he's like, how the heck is anyone else even sitting next to me in this restaurant when I'm thinking about it, making what I make, right? And I agree with him, right? I've done fairly well in my life, and I'm looking at the real estate market. I would like to move houses this year, and I'm looking at the real estate market going, what? How? Who are these people? I feel like I'm doing okay. Who the hell is buying a $2.5, $3 million house. You know what I mean? Roman, go read his blog on his money breakdown. Dan's earned it. Dan has a long tenured career. He did the brave thing and went out on his own on his, newsletter business. He does some advisory CISO work. He does some paid speaking engagements. He commands, a good amount of money to go speak somewhere, as he should. And so, yeah, he does pretty well in a given year. And he's still building. He's still building and releasing products. So I'm trying to kind of do my best Dan Miessler impression. On his blog somewhere, maybe I'll pull it up when I'm done reading this one, about his finances. If I'm blessed as hell and it leaves a bruise when I eat out, how is everyone else even surviving? Completely agree. Every indication points toward the prices getting even higher as a result of tariffs. Economists predict tariffs will raise consumer prices by 2.3% in the short run, equivalent to an average of a $3,800 per loss per household. Morgan Stanley expects inflation to hit 2.5% in 2025, up from the previous forecast. Goldman projects core inflation could reach 3%. I just don't know how much more we can take before something snaps. I don't disagree. It's hard. I'm not a macro guy, but got to move to BFE. Real estate is way cheaper. What's BFE? I'm not moving cities for what that's worth, and I'm not a suburb guy. So I'm either staying exactly where I am, or I got to figure out how to make a whole lot more money. I get itchy in the suburbs. I don't know what BFE is. I'm like born and raised New York City, so even living in Texas is an interesting choice for me. Multiple small effects can cascade into a collective sentiment. Oh, bumfuck. I've never heard that acronym, Brandon. That's awesome. Got to move to bumfuck Egypt to be able to afford. Yeah, I agree. I'm just not willing to make that trade-off. I go out to the suburbs and I'm like, I see one too many Target parking lots with all the chain restaurants in it, and I'm like, I get a little itchy. I'm like, no, thank you. See ya. Multiple small effects can cascade into a collective sentiment. This is why I'm actually concerned about. It's not one of those things, or two of them, or 10. It's the fact that many of them are happening at the same time. It's the fact that they can affect and magnify each other and become something much bigger. These are the types of scenarios I'm worried about. A massive economic slowdown gets announced. So he's saying, okay, prices of stuff are expensive, whatever. 2, a new AI employee product gets announced that's clearly can replace workers. It's a concern for sure. New layoff numbers get announced, and it's hundreds of thousands of people. New data shows basically nobody is hiring. Enrollment in college plummets because there's no jobs to be had after you go into all that debt. Inflation jumps massively due to tariffs. People massively default on credit card debt and or can't get any more credit, and the industry suffer. Homelessness skyrockets because people can't pay their rent, and now it's whole families on the streets. We start to see unrest and or riots against the quote-unquote rich because there are no jobs and people are being evicted. Crime goes up significantly. There's loud demand for government to outlaw AI and replacement of workers. We get pulled into some sort of new military conflict. The country continues to suffer financially because the world pulls away from the U.S., moves into the arms of China, and thousands more businesses go under because nobody can afford to buy their products. Well, if that isn't a depressing ass list, some of which is already in motion, right? I'm not as pessimistic as all that, but a lot of those things probably are on Polymarket, right? Like there is like a % chance of a lot of those things happening. I hate to bring up like the betting, but someone is saying there's a % chance of those things. Like I said, I don't think any of these things would be that bad. It generally understand it's hard to cause a recession just all of a sudden. Everything takes time, and there's natural balance to big movements in economic health. But the problem is several of these things are likely or already in progress, and that doesn't even include all the smaller compounding factors. Summary: everything's too expensive, getting worse. We already have massive layoffs, which is also likely accelerating. Billions are being spent on replacing our 100 million knowledge workers with AI. People are putting more and more on their credit cards. We've already We're already in a collective mental health crisis. Due to fragmented media and out of control mis and disinformation, we no longer have a shared understanding of reality. Oh my God, we can talk about that for an hour. We're primed by media to fight with each other because we no longer have common reality. The U.S. debt just hit $37 trillion. All the above are getting worse, not better. My prediction. I think there are many things happening right now or could be happening soon that could combine to create a narrative of panic in the population that's just barely holding on. I just don't know what the country does if some significant percentage of our 100 million knowledge workers get laid off because of AI, which causes them to stop spending in stores, canceling services, which cause businesses to fail, which may cause people to put even more on credit cards, which they can't pay back, which means people can't pay rent, mortgages, which might make be someone else's income, etc. It's a cascade. All right, he kind of said all this already. He thinks he's at a kind of a 50-50 chance on all of this above happening. Let's hope I'm wrong. My best advice right now, not trying to scare people, is just look around and appreciate what we have right now. Yep. All right, Dan. Fantastic post. Miserable, but fantastic post. What do you guys think? What do you get wrong? What do you get right? Where I was born and raised, 5-bedroom houses is $1 million. Here, $700K will get you a home on the Missouri River with your own dock and a McMansion. Yeah. I know it exists. I was looking at a place in a neighborhood that I want to move into that was 3 beds, had a pool, had a little yard with a pool, not a big yard, not a big pool, in a good neighborhood, walkable to stuff, easy commute to things. And it was $950 per square foot. $950 per square foot. It was like 2,300 square feet. So it was like $2.6 million for like a very normal house. I mean, it was nice, but very normal. Nothing crazy. 2,200 square feet. You're not talking 3-bedroom, $2.6 million. Not even in like the ritzy neighborhood either. It's a nice neighborhood. It's walkable, but he's right. And unfortunately really correct on the wars. The U.S. is going to be on the wrong side though. Yeah, it's a lot going on, right? Used to live North Austin back in the 2000s. It was insane back then. North of Austin's probably pretty cheap, especially back then, right? It's still kind of cheap. I'd say any like quote unquote desirable city is the same, right? If you live in a desirable city, real estate's just kind of stupid right now. It's almost better to rent. All right. This was the article Dan linked. SF's largest employer cut 1,000 jobs, says AI does 50% of the work. What's the actual claim here? Artificial intelligence does 30 to 50% of the work. What work? What work? There's no doubt that AI agents are replacing and will replace a substantial chunk of the workforce. No, this is a professor. What work? I just can't possibly agree that 30 to 50% of all the work at Salesforce is being done by AI agents. All right, this is just talking about AI generally replacing people. All right, they don't really go into it. I don't see it. 400K for a 4-bedroom around Fort Hood. Yeah, that's pretty expensive for that far out. I was living in the burbs of Houston 4-bed house in the burbs of Houston for 100K something, 180K. I mean, it was real cheap. It was, but he lived in the burbs of Houston. Yeah, no. Yeah, no, you know. All right, cool. What else do we want to chat about? That was kind of miserable. Do we want to read this other one? The AI creative destruction wave. The scariest thing to me about AI is I think very few of the current companies and products that we use every day are the best solutions. It's not about AI replacing workers. It's AI replacing the companies and products that service and employ them. I see what he's getting at. This is kind of the crux of what he's saying, right? Oh man, I've had a sneeze on deck for a million years. Not bad at all. The wild part is the north side of Jacksonville, where news reporters will give news around the corner and not on the street. Will sell 300K sight unseen. Is that like foreign investors? Who the hell's buying stuff in Jacksonville sight unseen? Oh man, I've had a sneeze on deck for so long. Bugging me. I gotta record a webinar in a few minutes. Yankees sell from New Jersey and just moved down to Jacksonville. Well, I'm a Yankee. I grew up in New York, right outside New York City, and a ton of Roman. Yeah, I got to record one. It's Rubrik's was recorded. We already did that one. Yeah, I heard the edit was a little weird, right? Like Ashish repeated himself because he had an audio issue or something. It's like, but yeah, I like Rubrik. They're a fun company to work with. Outside Ithaca, isn't that where Cornell is? I went up to a wedding up on the Finger Lakes, and I've been up there a few times. Yeah, I grew up right outside New York City on Long Island, and a ton of people definitely are Florida, like retirees and stuff. Jacksonville, though? I don't know, maybe nowadays. They sent you a DoorDash gift card for going? That's cool. Yeah, Rubik's a cool company, man. They're fun for me to work with. They tend to like me. They treat me well. I think their product is kind of, it's a no-brainer, like adds value. Yeah, I got to record one. It's with, oh man, it's like a friend who asked for a favor. They wanted to talk about the remote IT worker stuff, North Korea. So I should probably get set up a little for that. I just want to kick the tires. How'd this wind up sounding and looking and feeling? I don't know if any of like my Streamlabs stuff worked because we didn't get any like new followers or subscribers or anything. I've got like alerts set up and whatnot. I was like, oh, maybe I'll test some of these alerts, but yeah, I've got like a few of these little scenes set up. Yeah, okay. Scenes look pretty good. I got, yeah, I don't know, set up some stuff. I had this like Streamlabs set up on like an old computer way long time ago. A bunch of the boxes were like taking in capture cards from everything. I think live isn't as instant as TikTok and Twitch, but it's cool. Live chat. Yeah, it seems like there's a bit of a delay, right? Roman, I'm gonna try. I like hit apply to try to get like permission from TikTok. I needed to like get permission from TikTok to like stream via Streamlabs. Like I didn't have just like a stream key to use or whatever. So I was trying to figure it out. Then I think I gotta figure out a vertical scene. You know what I mean? So like this is what it'll look like on YouTube and Twitch, and then I need like a vertical thing for TikTok and Instagram. And then I can do it all at the same time because I gave Streamlabs money so that I could do that. So gonna do the damn thing. All right, cool. This was fun to sit and chat about all this AI stuff. It's kind of terrifying, but yeah, you've seen people do it. Yeah, me too. It just doesn't feel like the meta on TikTok, right? It feels like TikTok, it's more like FaceTime with a homie. I feel like the better quality camera and like the screen share. I feel like less people like that on TikTok live. I don't know if I'm accurate or not. I feel like a lot of people want to just be chilling and chatting, like as if they're FaceTiming a buddy. All right, I gotta run. This was fun. Thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging out. Tell your mom. I'm gonna record a webinar. Roman, I'll probably go live on TikTok later too while I'm working on, maybe today's Wednesday. Yeah, maybe I'll write some of the newsletter today. I put out my very first premium newsletter today. So there's that. Kind of nervous about it. People like paid money for it. So I only got like a dozen or so paying subscribers. I just launched it, but yeah, first time. So put a lot of work into it. Hope it's working. Maybe true, would be interesting to test. Yeah. I know Sabeel has like a really good camera setup, and on his TikTok, he seems to get people. I don't know, whatever. If I'm going to live stream, I might as well click all the buttons, right? All right, guys, cool. Well, thanks for hanging out. Let me pay for a giveaway. What kind of giveaway? What do you want to see? One month is like $10. Yeah, I think I did 10 a month, 99 a year. It's kind of like the default in premium newsletter land. So I kind of went with that. The newsletter went out. It's a interview with like a very successful cybersecurity person that's a friend of mine. And I asked him like a bunch of like really hard questions about like bad shit in his life. Sorry, I keep fucking with my nose. Like I said, I've got this sneeze on deck. And yeah, he brought it. It's a good interview. And I've got like, I don't know, 10 for the premium. Yeah, DM me, whatever.